Hey guys, what's good? This is Shayan with the second episode of the Blue Inversion Podcast. Today we are going to talk about how to stay inspired to make art. I thought that this topic is very relevant to me and to my viewers right now because I am going through this process of putting out a an artwork every weekday. And just so there is no confusion, I'll be calling them everydays from now on, and so that it doesn't get tricky to refer to this process I'm following right now, and calling them every weekday artwork gets really tedious. So I'll be calling it everydays from now on. Now, before I get into this episode, I would like to thank each and everyone who supported my first episode, either by a listen or you watched on YouTube or any other on any distribution platform. If you followed the link to the emails I sent or my socials, any kind of support means a lot and goes a long way for my podcast. So I will read out the names of everyone who showed their support on the YouTube comment section because that's the only thing that I can quantize and see. So the Poke World, thank you so much for commenting. Kinga Koroski, YouTube channel named My Home Videos, Wolfie Designs, Glitch Gaming and Tech. The last but not the least, it is a Russian name and it is in a Russian script, so I'm unable to read your name. I apologize, but I really love this comment and I really appreciate the kind words that you said about my videos and the tutorials. Mist, thank you so much. Yves Bodson, it is an incredible story that you shared with us. He has been using Blender since 1996. He discovered Blender in 1996 and he has been in touch with the industry since then. Now, let us get started with today's episode. Number one, why did I? The number one reason I picked up this topic is there's an issue with relying on inspiration and motivation as your source of, as a trigger to start any kind of work which you have to repeat over a long time or which is a core important part of your daily routine. So, what's that issue? Is that first of all, inspiration. Inspiration, in as I understand it, it's like loading your inner vault of sources to pull from your inner memory or whatever you call it, your mind, your soul, to load it up with some with valuable with art or any kind of work, creative work which you find valuable, and then you use motivation to execute on those inspiring thoughts and ideas and put them into your own work and do and make something of your own, that is to make art. Now the problem with this is that inspiration is uncontrollable, so is motivation. And although motivation can be practiced and renewed, inspiration comes very randomly. So, inspiration is much of a challenge. Now, before I go to the main solution and the things that I follow, I'd like to say that I'll still say one thing about motivation. That is, motivation. It does not last, as it is said, and that's why you should renew it every time, if each day. It's a muscle, just like we go to the gym, and just like we have to memorize something and keep revising it, or some skill like practicing football for athletes or any kind of work that needs motor skills. It's very same. It's similar. Motivation is a muscle. Putting yourself, forcing yourself, getting yourself to do something valuable and which is not easy, it takes a lot of effort. It is a brave act. I really recommend you guys check out The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield. It is one of the first books on these topics that I've read, and it is recommended a lot of by a lot of artists. And as a reading list, this is the first book I have recommended on this podcast. So do read it if you haven't already. So what I'm doing with these every weekdays, is that I'm practicing how to start. I'm practicing the art of motivation, the art of starting something. So, as you can see from the time lapse, or as you saw in the previous episode, these artworks are not very. I'm not spending days on these artworks because that just goes against the purpose and uh, the whole idea of doing every days. So I'm spending about 2 to 3 hours at max. Even less than that, I can deal with less than that because these were good days actually. The first 2 days were good days that I got some time in my hand in the morning to do some elaborate work, and it can get even worse. My artworks can get even worse than these. But what I'm really practicing is the art of thinking of an idea and putting it into something tangible. And maybe it is not perfectly textured, it is not, the shaders are not always on point, but I'm trying to learn something new with each work. I'm trying to explore some things which I have not explored. And just this idea, this practice of getting inspired, or actually setting up the environment in such a way that I get inspired. So the days which I get really inspired, I will make something good. But there are most of the days will be I'm not really that much inspired, but I still have that minimum baseline level of inspiration, which is a result of the mechanism that I've set up, and then I execute on it, and you get an artwork every day. So that's the point: to not miss a day and to keep going and to practice the art of starting an artwork, finishing it, and then posting it online. Design your habit in such a way that you have two levels of the habit. The first level is that it's the minimum thing that you can do on the shittiest day, and then so that you do not break the chain of continuing every day. And the second level, excuse me, the second level is that you have you have room to improve. So for my case, I have a minimum level that I'm going to do no matter what every day. I'm going to accomplish that, and it is going to be very easy because making an artwork in Blender, uh, it can be very easy as well. Because for my case, for my personal case, uh, I'm I'm pretty I'm pretty habituated to the Blender procedural workflow, so I can quickly concept something, iterate over ideas very fast in the node setup, and make complex shapes. So on the days when I'm unmotivated or time doesn't allow me to sit down for 2 hours, situations do not allow me, I can fall back to that. I can do it in 15-20 minutes and post it. That way, did I create my best work? Did I improve a lot that day? No. But did I completely stop? No, I didn't. So that is very important because that sets me up for the next day when I have time. That I will still have that self esteem that I did not miss a day, and that work which I put out last day, that still is something, that is art. I did post it, people saw it, so that is a complete execution of an idea. So now we have all of that out of the way. Now here is what I do to get inspired. Now this is not something like I have invented or discovered in my room here. It is done by numerous artists. Almost everybody does it, and I hope, but it is not always stressed enough, and I will share you how I do it, about the technicalities also. So if you're not already doing it, The number one thing which helps me to get get a load of ideas on the back of my mind is that I use mood boards. Mood boards are really essential when you're doing creative work. That does not have to be daily. Every creative person does uses mood boards, and what it does is that you categorize your interests. For example, I'm interested in sculpting. I'm interested in concept work, illustration. So I have mood boards on all these topics. So, and I even have like a general mood board called inspiration. So these things are very helpful when you run out of ideas. So I will show you something here. You can go on ArtStation, and there you can find that you can actually make collections very easily. That's a very useful feature, I guess. For example, this is one of my collections. It's called Nature. I did it back when I was working on the Smart Shaders Volume 2 that I released way back in during the Boundless Blending days. I'm sure some of you must have checked it out and remember it. Those are going to be discontinued and I'm going to release new ones. But this is how I came up with the featured renders for the product page. Now these are the inspirations for those. So this is how you get started with something, and you can pull. And I have been doing this for some time, and then when the date comes, then I just pulled ideas from this board. Some people use Tumblr or maybe Pinterest. I tried doing that, but it didn't turn out very well for me. I'm just not very habituated to the Tumblr or Pinterest workflow and the way the social media works. I might get habituated over time, but I've recently started using it not very regularly either, so I do not have much hope for the Tumblr and Pinterest thing. So I mainly do it on ArtStation and on Instagram. You can save posts on Instagram very easily. So these two features I use all the time. Now I have a separation between these two types of mood boards. So the distinction is that I have a long-term mood board and a short-term mood board. So long-term mood boards are what I showed you. It's for a vague idea, or I don't even have an idea for something, just liked something, categorized it, and put it into a mood board. Now, these are long term mood boards which do not have a specific goal. But when I start doing an artwork like this one, at the start of this time lapse, you must have seen there's a small little icon there, or a small little window on the top right corner, which had a few reference images, as in some inspirational artworks, some color, and other references. And I did it for the previous episode as well, and I will keep doing it. And that is actually the the short term mood board, as I call it, which is I just take this software that is open source, of course. It's called PureRef, and then I gather all these small, all these related topics. For example, let me get more clear with that. For example, this artwork. I had the inspiration for the bottles from one artwork, the volumetrics from another artwork. So what happens is that when I sit down to work, I take 15 minutes or 15 minutes, and I go through those long-term mood boards. I filter down those which are relevant to this artwork, and I create a short-term mood board, and that is done in PureRef. It is very easy to do. You can just drag the images from the browser and put it into PureRef. It helps you arrange the reference images in a very intuitive way and also preserves the resolution of the image. So these are two very important features of PureRef that I have seen, and it's very easy. So there's no downloading the image and then opening it up. It's a very reverse way of working, I guess, and PureRef has solved that problem for me. And if I have an idea which does not have a image associated with it, So what I do is that I write it down, and it's very silly. It sounds very silly at first, but let me tell you, this is really a fast way of concepting. If we go down to the very, very basic level of this uh, concept art thing, it is that it really is that how quickly can you get your ideas into tangible things which you can share with other people. So I think written word is a very fast way of concepting, which is not appreciated that much. I don't know for what reason. I guess some artists must use written word as their like primary, as their first layer of concepting, I think. So whenever I'm on maybe in commute, um, or I'm not near the computer to use PRF, I just take out my Trello social media app. It's not a social media app, I guess. It's a utility, I guess. I don't know. The Trello app, um, it's for collaborations and teamwork basically, but I use it so that I can synchronize between my phone and my computer. It keeps a tally of all your notes and has different categories of the uh, teams and topics, so it's very useful. And then what I do is that I just write it down. For example, if I for this artwork, if I just say bottles in boxes, that's what I write down in the ideas section. Then I have this list, ideas, then ideas that I'm working on, which means I've started working on them. If it is for a larger project like a tutorial, and then finished. So you can just drag them from one list to another. They're placed side by side, so it's very intuitive, and it helps me a lot. So as soon as I see that writing bottles in a box, I haven't forgotten the initial inspiration for the idea that sparked that sentence. So that phrase. So I immediately visualize the situation I was in when I wrote that, and I get back the idea. So I think it's a very cool little trick to get you inspired by your own collection of small nuggets and snippets of those brilliance of inspiration that hits you once in a while. So yeah, so this is what I use. Let me summarize that. So for long-term mood boards, which is stored online on social media apps like Instagram, Tumblr, Pinterest, I use ArtStation as well. I guess most of you are on ArtStation, so use that. It's very viable. And then on the short term, like right before I'm starting to make something, I use Trello. Excuse me. Right before I'm starting something, I use PureRef. And Trello comes in between. It's not long term, not short term. It's like you have to store the brain waves which caused an inspiration in a way that you can reproduce those brain waves so that you don't forget that, because there's no way to store what is inspiration, right? There's no way to store um, the idea that you have in your brain. You cannot say that I see this color and this gradient, this volumetric effect in my head, right? So you write it down, and only when you see it again, not someone else, but you have to see it, then only you get reminded of what you actually had in your head initially. So Trello, use that one. Or actually, it's not Trello, of course. You can use any kind of text app, and then you can just write it down. Make sure you don't lose it. I use Trello because it's synchronized, and even if my phone gets stolen and all that shit, then I'll have a copy. So that's it. Because I have been doing this for a long time, and I have a long list. If you're looking for some alternatives, then I'll say Evernote is a very good alternative to it. I use Evernote, of course, and that's why I'm recommending. And I use Evernote for some other works, not for writing down concept ideas, but Evernote has also been a very interesting app. They even have a Linux version, which is not official, but someone has written a framework for it, and it works. So thank you so much for watching or listening, and it's really a struggle in a good way to make these artworks and to make this broadcast because I'm really excited when I'm in the zone and when I'm recording the podcast. But when I get started in the morning, like, uh, I don't have an idea. Before I made this artwork, I didn't know what I was gonna make today. I made those short-term mood boards, and then it got a little bit clear. And when I finally got a bit of clarity, I just jump started into working, and then everything flowed. And then I got into this flow state of mind where I could create, and I was excited, and I felt that high of creating artwork. Again, when I'm doing this podcast, two passions of mine combined together, and I think I can improve on this, on both of these skills this way. Thank you for being on this journey with me, and let me know your thoughts about this episode and how you manage your inspiration and motivation. I know you have a lot of many creative ways which I do not know of. Share them in the comments. And if I missed something or if I uh, completely got something wrong, let me know because I'm just starting out. I'm not an expert in anything. So we're just having fun here. This is a podcast for Blender people, for everybody who loves art in digital and this new era of technology. So thank you so much for watching, listening once again. See you on the next episode. Till then, take care. This was Shayan. See you on the next episode.